have a breather, have a drink. Hey up, my name's Kayla and welcome to my channel. This video may be quite long. I'm going to try not to make it that long, but feel free to pause right now and go make yourself a cup of tea or a cup of coffee and get ready to settle in for some statistics on what I read in January. So this January, as I'm filming today on the 31st, on the Sunday afternoon, as it stands now, I have read 13 books in total. Over those books, I've read a staggering 4,977 pages. My average star rating for these books was 4.3 stars. I have had 7 5-star reads. My lowest star rating for the month was 2.5 stars. And the most that I have not read for this month has been 2 days in total, when my son was poorly. So overall, on the entire month, I've done really well. But I set myself a TBR for January. I had a set pile to read. I gave myself 15 books, I think it was, as an option to read from, and out of that entire 15 I have read 3 books. I don't know what happened. I just decided that after I've got like a little TBR bag box, and as soon as I put them in, I then decided I didn't want to read them anymore, and I didn't. So, but all in all, it's worked out because I have read 13 books, so it's not all bad, and a lot of 5-star reads in there. My books aren't really in any particular order. I've tried to do them sort of in the order that I read them, but it probably hasn't worked out that way. But I am going to start with the book that I gave the lowest star rating to this month, and that is the middle grade monthly pick of Keepers of the Lost Cities by Shannon Messenger. Right, so this book has got a lot of hype. It is part of a series that's really popular in the middle grade book community. I think it's very much a Marmite book. You either really love it or you don't. For me, I found it really problematic. I know I'm not the age that this is designed for. I understand that, but I do love middle grade. I do read quite a lot of it, and I have young daughters, and it's something that we enjoy is to share books. This book, firstly, I thought it was a bit of a Harry Potter rip-off. Her name is Sophie, I think. Yeah, her name's Sophie, the main character in it, and she's a telepath, and she has to leave her family because she has this special ability, and she goes to this special school, and she has a friendship group, and their adventure goes from there. And I just, like, one of the things that really like got on my lils was the fact that one of the characters in it is a bully, and as punishment for her being a bully, basically one of the other characters gives her something that makes her hair fall out, and then they give her something else to make her hair grow back, but it makes her grow facial hair. Now, I know that this may seem funny when you're of a young age, but I really don't find that sort of thing funny, and I wouldn't be happy with my daughters finding that funny either. I think I suffer from a condition called PCOS. One of the side effects from PCOS is facial hair. I am not one of these people that suffers from that, but it does happen, and it goes undiagnosed for so long when you're younger that there are some young girls out there that do have facial hair, and there are not just young girls, but there's young boys as well that like, because I don't think there should be any gender to it, but lose their hair for whatever reason. And I just think this is a really shit representation of being like, oh, as a punishment I will make you bald, and then, oh, as a punishment I will let you grow your hair back, but you're going to grow a beard as well. I just found it really awful to read, and the only reason that it got 2.5 stars is because I muddled through it and it was a really quick read, but I just didn't like it, and I don't think the representation is very good in it, and I don't see the hype, and I will not continue with this series at all. I don't know whether it gets any better, but that was enough for me to go, this is really shit. There are other things that you could have done with this book, and you could have been better equipped for the age bracket that you're trying to market this for. Didn't like it, and I'm just going to throw that one down there. The next one that I'm going to talk about is I'll Be Gone in the Dark by Michelle McNamara. I did a buddy read with Mind and Molly for this book, and again, I just didn't like it. I found it really uncomfortable reading because obviously the subject matter, this is a really hyped book. It's a woman, a real woman, because it's non-fiction, Michelle, who she's obsessed with and has been obsessed for a long time with blogs. She had a blog about killers and unsolved crimes, I think it was. Sorry, I read this at the beginning of January. And this book centres around the Golden State Killer and her findings and her fascination with what he was doing. And I just didn't like it. I know that it was going to be uncomfortable to read because of the subject matter, but I felt like the victims were very much a subject and not portrayed, like you didn't feel like they were a person. It did read very much like a novel, so I will give it that, as in it didn't read like, even though it was info dumpy, it didn't read like you were reading non-fiction, but I just didn't like the way it was. I also have this really weird thing where one of my biggest fears is somebody being stood outside your window watching you, and there was times of that in this book as well, which I know happens, and I know that it's non-fiction, and that's, you know, that must have been absolutely terrifying, but it really did terrify me as well. So I didn't really like it. I felt that it was it just wasn't right in my book. I sort of, like, I'm glad that I gave it a try, but I do read some scary stuff, and it's hard to say that. I think sometimes when people write fiction books, they write their characters with more feeling than Michelle wrote about the victims, if that makes sense. Yeah, not for me, but we gave it a go, and I know Molly struggled with it as well, so I don't feel on my own with that, and I'm glad that I did buddy read it with somebody, because I don't necessarily think I'd have trudged through as much if I didn't have somebody to chat along about it. Yeah. The next book is Hollowpox. This is by Jessica Townsend. This is part of the Nevermore series. Firstly, I just want to address that this book is stunning, absolutely beautiful. Under the dust jacket, it's gorgeous. I won't go too much into what this is about, because obviously it's the third book in a series, and if you've not read the series, then I do recommend picking up Nevermore. This it follows a character called Morrigan Crow, and I'm sure she's Morrigan Crow. Yes, she is Morrigan Crow. And in the first book, she is a cursed child that's supposed to die before a certain birthday, but instead she doesn't, and she ends up going to yet again another special school, and there's adventures, but it's just done so much differently. Its representation is so much different to, like, Harry Potter. I wouldn't say if you like Harry Potter, read this book. I would just say read these books because they are better. But Hollowpox is my least favourite of the series, and I'm so sorry to have to say that, but this basically is obviously the third adventure, and there is this disease that is sweeping the I think they're called the Unanimals, or it might be the Unanimals. Basically, some of the teachers and some of the people that live in this world with Morrigan are animals, but they can talk and they hold down jobs. Some are teachers, you know, you could be on the tube and your tube driver would be a fox, or and it sweeps these, and it basically changes their personalities and makes them a danger. The only thing that I say is it's fast paced, and it was really nice to go back into the world. I absolutely freaking love Jupiter. He is an awesome character. I did like the little piss takes. There's a few, like we have for the NHS stuff, is like hands, face, space, and there's a few little sort of naughty snippets, if you like, that are a bit of a piss take, which I enjoyed. I do enjoy that the characters are not all heterosexual. Oh, I can tell it's Sunday and I'm tired. There's some really good representation in there, but this one just fell a little bit flat for me. I don't know whether it's the fact that I'm reading it in a pandemic as well, but it was enjoyable and it was a quick read. But compared to the other two books, I like this one the least. But I think I still gave it 4 stars. It just wasn't quite there for me. The next book we're going to talk about is Flourish by Lydia Brownback. This is a non-fiction Christian text that has lots and lots and lots of tabs in. Basically sort of guiding you to be more present with Christ, rather than letting your own life get in the way. If you don't know, I am a practicing Christian, and I do read devotionals, not as often as I should, but I do read them. This book was really good for me. It sort of took me out of the materialistic life that I'm leading, or the fact that sometimes I am too busy to pray or listen to my worship music or devote time to my Bible. It really made me think about stuff. It's only a wee little 98 pages, the sort of first bit, and the back bit is a 30-day Bible study, and I'm yet to complete that, but you know, this were there when I needed it. It was the right time to read it, and my lovely husband bought it for me, and I'm so thankful that he did. I gave this 5 stars. I would recommend it to anybody who just feels a little bit lost, or like they're putting their time with their faith to one side. This is a really good reminder that Jesus comes first. God is first and centre in it all, and yeah. So the next 2 books I'm going to talk about are The Poppy War and The Dragon Republic, both by R.F. Kuang. They are extremely hyped books on BookTube. They are everywhere. Every man and his dog's heard about this book. If you don't know, they are based around the Opium Wars in, I think it's China. These are extremely graphic books. There are 1,000,001 trigger warnings for these books. Chapter 21 is the one that everybody talks about. It was absolutely disgusting. It made me feel physically sick. I've never had a book that's made me, there's been one other book actually before that, but this one was even worse. Make me feel physically sick. Rin, our main character, is really badass. These books are super descriptive, from things like abuse and rape and vomit, and I can't do vomit, and there's a lot of vomit in these books, but I really enjoyed them. I did find with the first book, I don't read a lot of fantasy. It took me a while to get into the stride of the writing and also the plot, because there's a lot going on. If you don't read fantasy very often, it's probably not the best way to start. But I decided to download the audio and listen to the audio whilst physically reading the book, and it helped so much. It helped with the characters' names. It helped to get a feel of the character. The only thing that I will say, and it's just a stupid thing to say, but it's a little thing that with the audio and the book that took me out of the story a little bit, because the narrator and the way it's written, it will be in a conversation and then it will go Rin said, and then the next character said, and so it'll be a flow of conversation, and then it'll be Rin said and they said and they said, and that would just, it just kept taking me out of the story a little bit. But that's me, that's not necessarily the book. I do have The Burning God to read. I'm sort of putting it off at the minute because they are chunky boys. I think the average, yeah, this one's about 650 pages. They are big lads. And at the moment I'm just not mentally prepared for a fantasy that's huge, that I know is probably going to destroy me. But I did give both of them 5 stars. I am glad that I picked them up and delved into this world, and I have recommended them to my husband as well, so hopefully he's going to pick them up soon and be just as repulsed as I am. The books have just collapsed. It's fine, it's fine. The next book that I picked up, I gave this book 5 stars, and that is Little Lion, and it's by Brandy Colbert. This was for my friend Shah's monthly book club. She has a bipolar book club which focuses on reading books that represent mental health. This follows Suzette and her brother, a brother Lionel, that's it. And basically Lion is Lionel and Little is Suzette, and Lionel has bipolar, and it's told from the perspective of Suzette. It's not a spoiler to say that Suzette and Lion they both have or fall in love with the same girl. It has some really good representation in it. The fact that you're not reading from a character's point of view that actually suffers with the mental illness is so refreshing. It's so good to see a character that is living with somebody with the mental disorder rather than the person being trapped in it. So that was quite fascinating to see. I suffer from anxiety, panic disorder, OCD and PTSD, to name a few, and so for me it was fascinating reading from somebody else's perspective to know sort of like what my husband experiences, what they see, rather than when you're in that bubble of suffering from that mental illness, you only see what you're feeling and not how your actions are represented to everybody else. And this was so well done. I flew through it. This paperback is absolutely gorgeous as well. It's really floppy. I've got a ton of tags in there from lines that I loved, from just little snippets that I just was like, oh my gosh, like that is so incredible. It just, I just loved it. I loved the representation as well of the character being bisexual. Suzette is not, she's not defined by her sexuality, and she has made some mistakes and she has some regrets when it comes to her sexuality and how she portrays herself, and it was so interesting to read them sort of struggles. She has her own struggles that don't necessarily include mental illness, so it made it a really quick and awesome read, and I just absolutely loved it. I flew through it, and I think it's a really good book for good discussion as well, and I would never have picked this up if it wasn't for that book club, so I'm so thankful for that book club getting me to pick this book up. The next book that I read was Assassin's Blade by Sarah J Maas. This is the novellas to the Throne of Glass Throne of Glass series. Oh, get your act together. Never read any Sarah J Maas before, never read anything that is like this, that was set in these kind of worlds. Didn't know what to expect, didn't know what the writing style was going to be. Absolutely flew through it. I fucking loved it. gave it 5 stars. I've immediately bought the next one, ready to carry on with the, I think it's called the Tog-along readathon. They are reading a Sarah J Maas Throne of Glass novel every month till about August, I think it is. I think this is a cracking place to start. I'm probably one of the only persons on the planet that has never read any of this, but I just had a lovely time when I was reading it, and yeah, would highly recommend it. The next book I'm going to talk about is Punch in the Air, and this is by, oh, I'm not even going to butcher those names, I'm just going to show you, because I think it'd be really disrespectful for me to try and butcher them names. This is a book that is told in verse. It's about a 16-year-old person of colour who is arrested and sentenced wrongly, and he goes to, is it called a rehabilitation centre? The entire book is told in verse, and it's set out like this. So try and find you another page. So set out like this, and I bloody loved it. I knew that this was auditing. I had seen this book on Good Morning Britain, and the author discussing that he was one of the people that were wrongly accused in, I think it was the Central Park runner crime. I'm sure it was Central Park. Yeah, Central Park runner, Central Park jogger case, that's the one. He was wrongly accused, he was sentenced, and he spent time in prison, and then when it eventually got investigated, he was proved innocent and he was released. And this deals with racism, it deals with how white people are treated differently to people of colour. The main character in this book is sentenced for an assault on a white person, and the comparisons and how it is written to make you realise the difference between how somebody who is of white heritage and how somebody who is of colour are treated differently. I feel that it's made me want to read more people of colour represented books. I feel really naive that, you know, that people do experience the things that is represented into this book, and I am blissfully unaware of it, sitting at home, you know, minding my own business and not having to experience these kind of things every day. Even the little details in here. The thing that I was worried about was that I have read books that were written in verse before, and I was really concerned that I wouldn't get along with it, that I wouldn't fall into the story as such, because the fact that it's written in verse would take me out of that, and I wouldn't really get the story kind of vibe. I was hooked. I read it like literally in a couple of hours, and it was brilliant. And yeah, I really recommend this book. I think it's a good place to start as well if you like want to read a book in verse, or want to read a main character that's a person of colour. The next book that I want to talk to you about is, I think, my favourite book of January. Well, I think it's definitely top 3, because my 3 favourites are here. But this is Miracle at the Higher Grounds Cafe by Max Lucado, I think you say it. This is a Christian novel. I've not read much Christian fiction. I didn't know how I would gel with Christian fiction. I think this is something you could read even if you're not a Christian. It is basically, it follows, I can't remember the lady's name, Chelsea. So there's this lady called Chelsea who, her marriage has fallen apart, and she's ended up living in a cafe, which I think used to belong to her mum. Her mum has passed away, she's taken it over, and it's suffering. It doesn't have much money, and it's falling on its arse, and she really doesn't know what to do. And she's trying to like keep her head above board on her own steam. Her husband's had an affair, and it's like her life is going tits up. And basically there ends up that there is a blog that I don't know how to say it without spoiling it. She has the internet put in the cafe so that people can go in and obviously use the internet whilst they have a drink and a coffee, a coffee and a cake and whatever. And the only internet site that it will sort of go to is God. You can write God a blog post or a question, type it in, and he will answer you. And obviously people are like skeptical about it because, you know, God's on the other end. How do they know that those prayers are for him? It follows her family and the people that visit the cafe, how they know that God's speaking to them, how you're constantly looked after even when you think you're not, how you're never alone even when you think you are. So even when you think you're in the darkest place, there's always somebody there with you. Even when things are not happening just as you want them to, maybe it's because you need to ask. It's really thought-provoking. It's only a slight little book, and I think it's just a little under 200 pages, and for 200 pages it packs so much in. I finished this book and I could have literally read it again from the start, and that's not even from a Christian point of view. It's just from the, like, there were some things that were said in this book, like, I don't want to spoil it, but there was a character who was feeling really, really down and had a lot of black presence around them because they are so down in the dumps. They've got this black cloud, and surrounding the black cloud was angels that were singing. Just like, it just warmed my heart to know that even in this shitty climate when everything is going completely wrong, there is somebody there who's waiting for you, that doesn't care if you swear a bit, that doesn't care how you are, that doesn't care if you've not brushed your hair, if your eyeliner don't match. Just, even if you're going through a tough time, this book just lets you know that you're not on your own, and I bloody loved it. And even if you're not Christian, I would recommend reading it just so that you can just feel that, like, warm and fuzzies. Like, it's all of the feels. And yeah, I literally want to read it again. I will read this book again and again and again, and I know I will, and I think everybody should read it. And I will be so surprised if this is not in one of my books of this year. I really will. The next book I read in January was The Burning Girls by C.J. Tudor. C.J. Tudor is a horror thriller writer. This is her fourth book. The other book that I've just realised that I've forgotten to bring upstairs with me is The Other People. I didn't really like The Other People, and so I won't actually talk about it too much here. But this book was incredible. This for me was just like, she is back. This follows a vicar who is, for a certain reason, without giving any spoilers, she is moved to another parish and takes her daughter Flo, and the parish that she goes to live at basically has this sort of long-standing history with this thing called the Burning Girls, which is basically the Burning Girls appear to certain people, and when they appear, that means something bad's going to happen. The Burning Girls start to appear to the vicar's daughter, and then unfolds this whole, like, what's going to happen. And then it sort of, you end up like finding out that there's this whole mystery with the village, and there's a lot of people involved, and there's a lot of secrets being buried, and obviously it's a small village and everybody knows each other, and there's a lot of stuff that's going on. The Burning Girls are based around there's two girls that were that lived in the village that for whatever reason tried to run away and then were never seen again, and people are associating the Burning Girls with these two girls, and it just unfolds from there. It's fucking creepy, it's really disgusting. It's because I don't know whether it's because I live right near a church, or like being a Christian, obviously I've gone to church quite a bit, but the whole setting that was done in the church creeped me out like a whole lot. It was amazing. I read it like compulsively. It gave me, it's so spooky without having I don't know, like without being, obviously it's gruesome in places, but the atmospheric writing is what makes this book so freaky. The way that she talks about her characters, the way that she builds the tension as to what's happening, the way that she describes the Burning Girls, the way that you can see the graveyard and you can see the places that they discover, like it's a small village and a small house, and the house is creepy, and the back gardens are backing onto the church and the graveyard, and it just, it's just written so well, and I absolutely bloody loved it. To say that the other people just fell flat for me, I was a bit apprehensive at picking this up, because I thought, oh, maybe that, like, CJ Tudor has always been a go-to, like, I will buy anything that she writes. I've met her, she's wonderful. She wrote her first novel in Waterstones Cafe in Nottingham, and she's just awesome, and she is literally a go-to author. But I did start thinking, oh, maybe that the first two books were for me, and maybe that the route that she's going down now is not for me. And then she brought this bad boy out, and I realised that, you know what, that she is for me. I still love her, so I will still automatically buy anything that she brings out. And if you want a creepy thriller, then pick this up. It's just absolutely bloody epic, and oh, the woman can write, I tell you. And my final book will be no surprise if you watched my January favourites, and that is The Push by Ashley Audrain. I'm not going to go too much into this book here. I did talk about it in my January favourites, but this book follows a lady called Blythe. She gives birth to a little girl called Violet, and she doesn't bond with Violet really well. She starts to think that maybe there's something wrong because Violet just doesn't seem to like her, and the story unfolds from there. And it was just compelling. It was thought-provoking. It made me dislike a child, like actually dislike a child. And as a mum, I don't know how you can say that you don't like a child, but I really didn't like her. She made me so uncomfortable. The writing is so well done, and I think this book is amazing, and it's one of my favourites, and I couldn't get enough of it. And I'm going to bully my husband into reading it, because I need Violet to creep him out as much as she did me. And also, I'm sure her name's Violet, yeah. And the last line in this book was the most infuriating line that I have ever read in a book, to the point that I was reading this with somebody on Twitter, and we were reading it at the same time. I just posted about it. She said she was reading it too, and I tweeted her and said about this last line, and we both was like, where is the rest? There needs to be more to this book. It's brilliant, and I've got nothing but high praise for it. The cover's stunning. It was an absolute bargain. I picked it up on a whim, and it was cracking. And that's it. That's 13 books, a massive mess on the floor. I think what I'm going to do from now on, because my camera has died like 3 times doing this, So I think from now on I'm going to do a mid-month wrap up and then a end of month wrap up, so I'm not doing a 55-minute video of me waffling, and that'll just make it easy for me as well. And yeah, so I'm hoping to read some good books in February. January has been a really good start. I've set my Goodreads goal at 52 books for the year and I'm already 13 in, so I'm like, yes, let's crack on with that reading. If you've done your January wrap up or you've read any of these books, then please do comment down below. I would love it if you would subscribe. If you've stayed with me all this time, like, thank you so much. It just means the world. If this video is not working, and then also please let me know. I'll find a different and more creative way to do it. I am just learning. It has taken a few years to get back. Yeah, so thank you for bearing with me, and I will see you with another video, hopefully not as stressful as this one's been, very soon. Thanks a lot.